DC's cinematic universe is not nearly as many films deep as Marvel's, and it doesn't have quite as many triumphs, but DC's Shazam is certainly one of them. One of the best superhero movies in recent memory, and yes, there are a lot of them. Shazam is incredible, and with characters and history as strange as Shazam / Captain Marvel's, it's amazing that this movie ever even got made, much less this well. Hi, I'm Dan Upton, and Shazam! Okay, not what I expected, but In the late 1930s, publishers at Fawcett Publications based in Minnesota wanted to capitalize on new comic heroes like Superman and Batman, so Wilfred Fawcett, also known as Captain Billy, hired Bill Parker and C.C. Beck to create a hero. What they created instead was what they thought of as a team of heroes in one character. A boy named Billy Batson is given power from a wizard to become a hero with the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. Never mind that the source of his power is a weird mixture of gods, demigods, mortals, Hebrews, and Gentiles, and okay, basically anything that would fit the acronym Shazam. But the name was hard to figure out. Captain Billy already had the Billy part named after him, so why not the whole thing? After all, the #1 selling magazine till then was called Captain Billy's Whiz Bang, which was amazingly not innuendo. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen an issue, so, you know. Anyway, Captain Thunder was set to debut in Flash Comics #1 in 1940 when both the names Flash Comics and Captain Thunder were suddenly copyrighted out from under them. So, days before publication, they changed the name to Captain Marvel and Whiz Comics. Quickly, the character became even more popular than Superman, and during World War II, it was the #1 selling comic book, and was even the subject of the first superhero live-action movie in 1941. DC was pretty far from happy because a caped man with black hair, amazing strength, speed, and flight were sort of their territory. They sued for copyright infringement, and that backfired massively as a judge ruled that DC had no copyright to Superman. But Dan, was the movie good? I'll get to that. Don't worry about it. Daddy's telling you Golden Age stories. Okay, so as a result, that means that to this day, the families of the creators of Superman are some of the only people who personally own the rights to a major character. It does mean that Fawcett received a favorable ruling after about 10 years of litigation in 1951. But by then, the popularity of both Captain Marvel and Fawcett Comics had waned significantly. An appealed decision by the legendary Judge Learned Hand restored DC's copyright of Superman, and Fawcett settled with DC and ceased publishing the character Captain Marvel in 1953. The classic stories inspired young readers like Alan Moore, and even inspired a young musician named Elvis Presley, who modeled his hair and sideburns after Freddie Freeman, eventually adopting the signature shoulder cape and flared collar of Captain Marvel Jr. as part of his performing outfit in the 1960s and 70s. In the 60s, Marvel Comics created and copyrighted their own Captain Marvel after Fawcett's copyright lapsed. So in the 1970s, under the leadership of Carmine Infantino, the classic Flash artist, DC revived the old Fawcett character under the name Shazam. In the 2019 film, this becomes kind of a point of humor because Billy's superhero doesn't really get a real name until the very end of the movie. The Shazam movie is unique in a number of ways. One, it is the only Shazam movie that does not star 90s actor Shaquille O'Neal. Two, it manages to tell a very fresh origin story that doesn't feel like an origin story. The antagonist is a real character with a real arc and is truly empathetic. The third act isn't a shaky mess where everything's on fire. And it doesn't feel like it requires the context of the DCEU to stand on its own, despite being firmly placed there. In short, it does everything right that DC and Marvel movies often get wrong. It felt timeless, like it could have come out in the 80s or 90s. Comforting in a weird way, in the best of ways. It made me feel like the kind of vicarious escapism and excitement that the very best comics do. Billy's arc of finding his mom and becoming part of his foster family felt as high a stakes as his fight with Savannah. There isn't a single throwaway character in the entire movie except perhaps with the exception of Savannah's brother and dad. Literally Freddy and Billy as primary characters are incredibly entertaining, but the rest of the Marvel family, Shazamily, are vividly realized and incredibly unique. The villains directly hinted at, like Mr. Mind and Black Adam, point to this having at least 2 very successful sequels. Shazam took one of comic history's most beloved and complex superheroes and unexpectedly nailed everything good about the character and managed to make a family movie that feels like an instant classic. It'll be overshadowed by Endgame, no doubt, that's almost a given, but the truth is that since the end of the Nolan trilogy, this is probably the best DC film that's been made. Next to Wonder Woman? Easily on par with Wonder Woman. It's on par with the best of movies, not just in the superhero genre, but action in general. It's a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.